When I returned home after a weekend at the cheapest roadside motel they could find, I discovered my son had already scheduled the open house. His wife had even packed up my clothes. But the look on their faces when I told them who I sold the house to, was worth more than the house itself. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. I'm Arthur Gillis. 72 years old. Retired high school chemistry teacher, Korean War buff, and grandfather of 2 boys who still think banana bread solves everything. Widower, 2, going on 11 years. And according to my son Daniel, I'm now too old to live alone anymore. He didn't always think that. Just last year, Daniel called me his hero. Said I was a rock during Sheila's illness, his words, not mine. He used to drop by unannounced, pour me a coffee, and ask how I held everything together after the cancer took her piece by piece. What I never told him was that I didn't hold it together. Not really. I just survived in the only place that still felt like her. The house Sheila and I bought back in 1984. 3 bedrooms, creaky floors, garden in the back where she grew hydrangeas the size of dinner plates. The same house we raised Daniel in. The same one we nearly lost in '97 before I picked up night shifts tutoring for extra cash. After she passed, I kept that house running like it was still ours. I mowed the lawn every Friday like clockwork. Fixed the pipes myself when they groaned in winter. And every Thursday, I baked banana bread, her recipe, still smudged with vanilla on the corner of the note card. I'd bring a loaf to Daniel's house for the boys. Told them it came from Grandma's kitchen, and they'd eat it like it was magic. They'd ask about her sometimes. About the treehouse she wanted in the backyard but never got around to building. About the time she tried to turn the garage into an art studio. About the way she used to laugh when the dog barked at the doorbell on TV. Those moments meant something. Or at least I thought they did. Because lately, those boys hardly look up from their tablets when I walk in. And Daniel? Well, Daniel's gone from calling me his hero, to calling me a liability. His wife, Madison, started showing up more. At first, it was under the guise of kindness. She'd bring overpriced lattes I never asked for, talk about her wellness coach, and ask if I needed help setting up grocery deliveries, because these apps can be confusing, you know. Always smiling. Always watching. She started taking photos. Just for reference, she claimed, snapping my kitchen tiles, the backyard patio, even the hallway light fixtures. That's when the notebook came out, spiral-bound, white leather cover, gold lettering on the front that read, Plan. Manifest. Own. And every time she visited, she'd jot something down after glancing around like a real estate scout casing the next listing. It's not safe for him to be here alone, she'd whisper to Daniel, just loud enough for me to catch while pretending I couldn't hear. The stairs. The gas stove. Mold risk. Mold risk. That bathroom was remodeled 3 summers ago. I still had the receipts and the calluses from retiling it myself. She'd ask Daniel in that syrupy tone of hers, "Do you think you remembered to turn the oven off after lunch?" I'd be in the next room, reading the paper. But the performance wasn't for me, it was for him. Madison always played to her audience. What bothered me most was how quickly Daniel started echoing her concerns. He used to trust me. Used to call and ask how to fix a leaking faucet or which fertilizer to use for his grass. Now he second-guessed whether I should be driving myself to doctor appointments. "You know, Dad," he'd say, rubbing the back of his neck like it pained him to bring it up, "Madison thinks we should maybe look into a smaller place for you. Safer. fewer stairs. Madison thinks. That phrase started replacing anything he used to say for himself. The grandkids followed suit, though in a different way. Henry, the oldest at 12, barely looked up when I visited. Always locked into his games. Once, I brought over a model rocket kit, something Daniel and I used to build together when he was that age. Henry muttered, "That's okay, Grandpa," without even taking his headphones off. And little Jack, sweet, goofy Jack, he still gave me hugs, but even those felt more like habit than affection lately. Like he was being polite. They were drifting. Or maybe I was just watching them row away. I wasn't stupid. I saw how Madison's eyes lit up when she toured my house last Thanksgiving. Her manicured hand traced the oak banister like it was already hers. "Original hardwoods," she said, her tone practically buzzing. "And in this neighborhood, we'd get multiple offers, easy." Daniel had laughed. "It's true, Dad. You wouldn't believe what this place is worth now." That was the moment. The shift. The spark that turned into a slow-burning plan. The house I'd built my life in wasn't a home to them anymore. It was a transaction. And I'd just become the old man standing in the way. It all came to a head one Thursday afternoon. I had just dropped off banana bread and was about to head home when Daniel asked me to stay for coffee. Madison joined us at the dining table with that damn notebook again. She had even bookmarked pages with sticky notes this time. "Dad," she began, her tone rehearsed. "We've been doing some research." Daniel jumped in, nodding like a bobblehead. "Just looking at options, nothing final." I raised an eyebrow. "Options for what?" They exchanged a look. The kind couples make when they've already agreed on the outcome and are just waiting to sell the pitch. "There's a community," Madison said brightly. "Briar Ridge Senior Living. It's 15 minutes from here. They have private suites, a fitness center, weekly movie nights, a shuttle to the supermarket. It's more like a resort than a care facility." She pushed a glossy brochure across the table. A 10 older couple smiled on the cover while playing tennis. The man looked like he'd never scrubbed a toilet or sharpened a lawnmower blade in his life. "They even have a woodworking studio," Daniel added, like that was the deal clincher. "I already have a workshop," I said, unmoved. "Yes, but this one's supervised," Madison said, as if I was 2 screws away from sawing my fingers off. "And the emergency call buttons are state-of-the-art. You'd be safe. And surrounded by people your age." "My age?" I repeated, setting my coffee down harder than I meant to. "I still change my own oil, Madison." "That's not the point," Daniel said quickly. We want you to enjoy your golden years." I looked between the two of them, my son, who used to beg me to stay a little longer when I tucked him in, and his wife, who saw me less as a father-in-law and more like a liability sitting on a 6-figure asset. "Daniel," I asked quietly, "do you want me out of the house?" He hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. Madison reached out like she was soothing a wounded animal. "No one's pushing you, Arthur. We're just trying to help you transition into a more sustainable chapter." Sustainable chapter. Like I was a line item in a budget plan. I stood up. "Let me think about it." That weekend, they offered me what they called a getaway, a little break to clear my head. Daniel handed me a prepaid card and directions to a motel called the Sand Rose, 2 towns over. Said it would be good to take a breath, maybe read, maybe watch some sports on cable. Just some peace and quiet. I didn't argue. The sand rose looked like it hadn't been updated since Reagan left office. Cigarette burns on the comforter. A TV the size of a microwave. The kind of place where people disappeared, not vacationed. My room smelled like wet drywall and disappointment. No one at the front desk spoke in full sentences. I spent the first night lying on a mattress that sloped to the left, trying to picture what my life would look like in a community, with piano sing-alongs and schedule boards. The second night, I walked to a gas station and bought myself a sandwich and a newspaper. I sat outside the motel on a plastic chair that creaked with every movement and read the classifieds, the real estate section, the obituaries, just to remind myself I wasn't in one yet. By Sunday morning, I was supposed to call Madison and confirm a tour at Briar Ridge the following week. Instead, I packed my bag, checked out early, and drove straight back home. And what I saw when I pulled into my own driveway. That's when I knew this wasn't about my health. This was about ownership. The driveway was packed when I got back. Daniel's truck. Madison's Audi. A landscaping van with its rear doors open, tools spread across my lawn like guts from a carcass. And standing on the porch, clipboard in hand, was a woman I had never seen before, wearing a fitted blazer and high heels too clean for this kind of work. A real estate agent. I killed the engine and sat in the car for a moment, staring at the scene in front of me. The for sale sign hadn't gone up yet, but it was only a matter of time. I slipped out of the car quietly and took the side path around the house, boots crunching softly on the gravel I laid myself 20 years ago. The back window by the kitchen was cracked open just an inch, probably to let out paint fumes. Or guilt. Voices floated through the gap, clear and unmistakable. "Need it ready by next weekend," Madison was saying. "I've already booked the photographer. We want the photos up by Thursday." Daniel replied, "And if Dad finds out?" Madison's voice lowered, sharper now. "He won't. He's still at that dumpy motel you sent him to. And even if he comes back, what's he going to do? He already signed the healthcare proxy last year, remember?" "He didn't read that," Daniel mumbled. "He just trusted us." "Exactly," she said. "We're protecting him. And ourselves. This place is too much for him, too many stairs, too many memories. It's time. And the market's too hot to wait." I stepped back from the window, a sick heat spreading across my neck. My own son, parroting lines his wife had fed him like medicine. As if selling my house while I slept in a motel was an act of mercy. From inside, I heard Madison again, "We'll stage it with minimal furniture. Clear out the clutter. It needs to feel young, aspirational. Like a rebirth." "Should we move the banana bread stuff?" Daniel asked. She laughed. "Burn it, for all I care." I moved to the porch, quickly, before I could lose my nerve, and walked right through the front door. They didn't hear me at first. Madison was showing the agent the built-in shelving I'd installed with Sheila during our no-vacation summer. Daniel was halfway through moving books into a box labeled Dad's Office, toss. I cleared my throat. The room froze. Daniel turned first, going pale. Madison followed, blinking like she couldn't quite believe I was real. "Dad," he stammered, you're back early." "Looks like I missed quite the open house," I said, eyes scanning the half-packed boxes, the scuff marks where furniture had been dragged, the sad pile of family photos tucked behind a stack of throw pillows labeled storage. Madison stepped forward like she was addressing a hostile witness. "Arthur, we were just organizing. We didn't want to overwhelm you with the process." What process would that be? I asked, voice low. The process of removing me from my own home? Or the process of profiting from my so-called decline? Her smile faltered. It's not like that. No. Because it feels like that. Especially after hearing how disposable my life is between your bullet points and paint swatches. Daniel walked toward me, hands up like I was a bear that needed calming. Dad, we weren't going to do anything without talking to you first. We were just preparing. Preparing? I snapped. You had the stager, the agent, and the boxes ready. You even booked the photographer. All while I slept in a room that smelled like bleach and broken dreams. Madison tried to interject, but I turned to her. And you? You looked me in the eye and said you cared about my well-being, all while making plans to erase me. We were trying to help, she said through clenched teeth. This house isn't safe. This house is mine. The agent, sensing the nuclear energy in the room, started packing her folder. I think I'll give you a moment. No need, I said. You can take your moment and your pitch elsewhere. This house is not for sale. Madison's eyes flared. Arthur, come on. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, I said. Clear enough to know that I'm no longer part of this family's future plans. So here's the new plan. I stepped back toward the door and paused. You'll get a call soon. It won't be from a real estate agent. But it will change everything you thought you were entitled to. Daniel opened his mouth, but I was already walking. Out the door, off the porch. And straight toward the next phase of my life. Not my retirement, but my retaliation. I drove aimlessly for a while after leaving the house. Just asphalt and the low hum of the road, my hands tight on the wheel, the town blurring past like a place I no longer belonged to. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. What I felt was deeper. Something colder. This wasn't just about the house. Not really. This was about being written off. By my own blood. Erased like a chalk mark on a board I'd once taught full classrooms from. I kept thinking about that kitchen conversation, Madison's soft, coaxing voice hiding sharp edges. The staged concern. The planning. The manipulation. And Daniel. My son. A boy who once cried when I left for a weekend conference in Chicago. Now casually boxing up my life like it was a garage sale. They didn't want to take care of me. They wanted to take control of what I built. And what they didn't know, what they never understood, was that I've spent a lifetime reading people. 37 years in public schools, watching teenage lies unravel in real time. I could smell a scheme the moment it stepped onto my porch. So I started making phone calls. Not to lawyers. Not to friends. To Joan. Joan and Sheila had been estranged for the better part of 2 decades. Something about a personal loan gone sour. Sheila was stubborn, Joan was proud, and neither one ever backed down. But Joan had always liked me. Said I was the only one in the family with both a spine and a soul. And the moment she answered the phone, I knew I'd dialed the right number. Arthur, she said, cautious. Is everything? No, I said. It's not. But I have a proposal. She invited me over that same evening. Joan lived in a modest ranch house 2 towns over, filled with antique clocks, books stacked like architecture, and a scent of cinnamon and old wood. She didn't offer small talk. Just poured 2 glasses of red wine and said, start from the beginning. I told her everything. The motel. The boxes. The whispers I heard through the window. The real estate agent on my front porch like a vulture in pearls. Joan didn't interrupt. Not once. Just listened, nodding slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. She wore the same expression Sheila used to wear when the mechanic tried to upcharge her for a brake job she didn't need. When I finished, she set her glass down carefully. "Let me get this straight," she said. "They sent you to a motel, packed your belongings, and planned to sell your home before your banana bread even cooled. That about sums it up. And you want revenge." I paused. "No," I said. "I want to make sure the house doesn't go to them." Joan's eyes lit with something that hadn't been there in years. "Good. Because revenge happens to be a specialty of mine." She walked me through it. Step by step. Joan had sold off part of her art collection last year, freeing up more cash than she knew what to do with. She'd been toying with the idea of buying a property in a quieter neighborhood anyway. "I'll buy it," she said. "Full asking. Cash. No contingencies. And in return, you stay there, live like nothing happened. I'll put it in writing, you have lifelong tenancy, as long as you want. After that?" Her smile sharpened. "I've been meaning to turn some land into a wildflower sanctuary. Seems like the perfect spot." I chuckled. "You're serious?" "I was born serious, Arthur. And I'm not doing this for charity. I'm doing this because if Madison ends up hosting wine tastings in Sheila's kitchen, I'll burn the whole block down." That was Joan. Fire, all the way through. Joan Whitaker had always been a storm in the shape of a woman. Sheila's older sister by 5 years, she had never married, never softened, and never once apologized for either. While Sheila became the heart of our family, kind, patient, steady, Joan was the spine. Sharp, upright, and impossible to bend. They were close once. Practically inseparable as girls, until adulthood split them into two different worlds. Joan became a gallery curator in Denver, lived in a converted firehouse loft, smoked expensive cigarettes, and referred to family events as circus reunions. She wore black like it was armor and quoted James Baldwin at baby showers. Most of the family found her impossible. I found her fascinating. Sheila was the only one who could bring out Joan's warmth. I remember them laughing in the kitchen late into the night, playing cards and whispering like teenagers. But that ended in 2003, over money. A loan that Sheila never repaid, and a silence that grew louder every year. Joan stopped visiting. Sheila never talked about it. Neither of them ever forgave the other. When Sheila passed, Joan didn't come to the funeral. Daniel never forgave her for that. "Good riddance," he muttered under his breath when her name came up during the will reading. Madison agreed. "She's the kind of woman who drinks red wine alone and makes enemies at brunch," she once said, half laughing. But I never stopped sending Joan Christmas cards. And she never stopped replying, short notes, typed, always signed with a single line, "Still here, Arthur." So when I called her that night, and she answered on the second ring, it felt less like reaching into the past, and more like waking up a sleeping weapon. 2 days later, I met her lawyer in a quiet office above a bakery. The floorboards creaked underfoot. The receptionist wore socks. Joan didn't come to the signing, said she preferred not to taint the paperwork with emotion, but her fingerprints were all over the contract. Ironclad. Beautifully brutal. We signed the deal in under 20 minutes. The wire transfer went through before lunch. Just like that, the house was no longer mine. And yet, it was more mine than it had ever been. Because now it wasn't tied to Daniel's entitlement. Or Madison's spreadsheets. Or any stager's minimalist fantasy. No one could touch me now. Not Daniel. Not Madison. Not any real estate agent or financial puppet master they consulted behind my back. I was a tenant for life. Protected. Untouchable. Fully authorized to live in the home until the day I chose to leave, or the day they carried me out. And the deed? That belonged to Joan Whitaker. The black sheep. The ghost they thought they buried with the family grudges. They had no idea. I walked back to my car in a fog of strange clarity. The kind that only comes after a clean break. The world seemed sharper, more honest. I felt old, but I didn't feel done. I felt satisfied. Like I'd finally stood up after sitting quietly through 100 dinners where people talked over me. But beneath all that, there was still pressure in my chest. Not from age. Not even from betrayal. It was the steady hum of something unfinished. The knowing. Because no matter how clean the deal was, no matter how safe the house now stood, some debts still needed collecting. And I planned to collect every one. The house was safe. Now it was time to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. The knock came at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was halfway through slicing a loaf of banana bread, the house smelling like brown sugar and cinnamon, when I heard it, 3 sharp raps on the front door, followed by voices I recognized before I even turned the knob. Daniel. Madison. And someone new. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door. Madison was in full performance mode, heels, trench coat, hair curled like she was posing for the listing photos herself. Daniel stood behind her, stiff and sweating through his collar. The third woman, the same real estate agent I'd seen earlier, was holding a tablet and trying not to look nervous. "Dad," Daniel said. "Hey." "Arthur," Madison cut in, giving me a smile so wide it practically clicked into place. "You're looking well. We weren't expecting you to be here right now. We, thought you were still, considering things." "I considered," I said calmly, stepping aside. "Come on in." They entered cautiously, like burglars who weren't sure if the alarm had gone off. Madison made a beeline for the kitchen island. "So, here's the exciting part, we've had several buyers express interest. One in particular is ready to move fast. Full cash offer, no contingencies." The agent chimed in. "They'd like to close within 10 days, if possible. Of course, we'll handle the relocation logistics. Movers, storage, transitional housing, we've got a team on standby." Daniel gave me a stiff smile, like it hurt to stretch his face that far. "We wanted to loop you in before anything official." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Before anything official, huh?" Madison's smile faltered for just a second. "Well, yes. Out of respect." "Respect," I repeated, letting the word hang in the air like a hammer waiting to fall. I reached into the drawer by the sink and pulled out a plain white envelope. Sealed. Clean. Heavy with the weight of their unraveling. "Before you get too deep into your logistics," I said, handing it to the agent, "you might want to review this." The agent opened the envelope. Her eyes scanned the first page, and her brow furrowed. Her fingers moved faster now, flipping pages. Madison turned toward her. "What is it?" The agent didn't answer. She just looked up, right at me, and said, "This house is not for sale." Daniel blinked. "What?" Madison stepped forward. "There must be a mistake." "No mistake," I said. "The house was sold last week." "To who?" Madison snapped, the friendly veneer finally peeling off. "To someone with more decency than either of you," I said. "The new owner has granted me lifelong tenancy. Which means you can't sell it. You can't list it. You can't touch it." Daniel's face went pale. You sold it without telling us." I turned to him. "Without telling you? You mean the people who packed my belongings while I was locked in a motel room and planned to stage my living room before I was even dead?" Madison's voice dropped to a low hiss. "This is vindictive." "No," I said. "This is self-defense." She laughed bitterly. "So what, some rando bought the house just to keep you here out of charity?" "Not charity," I said. "Family." Madison's face went stiff. "Who?" The answer hit like a thunderclap. "Joan," I said. Daniel's jaw clenched so hard I thought I heard teeth grind. "Aunt Joan. She owns this house now," I said. "And she's made it very clear, she would rather burn it to the ground than let either of you so much as hold a spare key." Madison stood frozen, lips parted like she had something to say but couldn't find the script. Daniel looked like a kid who'd dropped his ice cream cone. The agent, awkward and pale, cleared her throat. "I think I'll give you all some privacy." "Smart girl." She slipped out quietly. Madison turned to me, her voice barely a whisper now. "You really did this to us?" "To you." I stepped forward, lowering my voice. "I did this because of you." Daniel spoke for the first time in full voice. "You blindsided us." "No, son," I said. "You blindsided me. You lied. You schemed. You tried to take everything your mother and I built, and flip it like some investment property." There was a long silence. Madison broke it. "This isn't over," she said, venom in her eyes. "You think this little stunt will protect you forever?" I shrugged. "No. But it protects me long enough." Madison turned and walked toward the door. Daniel hesitated. "Dad." I held up a hand. "Don't. Not today." He nodded slowly, shame or anger, I couldn't tell which, rising in his throat. Then he followed his wife out the door. I closed it behind them. And this time, I locked it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peaceful. No boxes. No agents. No voices in the next room plotting my erasure. Just the smell of banana bread, warm and steady. I walked to the kitchen, sliced 2 more pieces, and plated them. One for me. One for the memory of the woman who made this house a home. Then I sat in the sunroom, where Sheila's hydrangeas still bloomed along the fence. I took a bite, leaned back, and smiled. Some people leave behind an inheritance. And me? I left behind a warning.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to the story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.